Okay, boom. So we're gonna get started. So basically, this is let's get this money. Your ultimate guide to girl, go back. Your ultimate guide to I'm trying to move my little thing out the way. Your ultimate guide, resource for securing funding and support for your project, initiatives, or causes. So before we get started, let me just say this. I am not a grant writer. I don't do that for a living. I'm just here sharing information to help you guys get grants. I went through the whole process, like start to finish, and the grant that I got was very layered. So I learned a lot in that process, and I've learned some more information since. So I'm just really sharing this. This is like my Christmas present to all my people who fuck with me heavy. Okay. And it's such a big deal for you guys to get on here on a Friday night and share space with me, even if it's something that you need in return. That's a big commitment that you made. And I just want to applaud all of you because you could have been like, okay, girl, and I did it. So kudos to you. And I think it's going to pay off. Okay. Another thing is, if y'all have questions, put them in the chat and like put it all in caps so we could just scroll through or just like write it down somewhere real quick. I'm gonna go through the information and then that way we'll do all the questions at the end so it'll just be more succinct. Okay. So hey girl, hey to all my friends that are new here. What's up? What's up? What's up? Happy Friday. The year is wrapping up. I cannot believe that we are almost done with 2023. This has been the fastest year I feel like of my life. I don't know if the rest of y'all feel like that. That's why my friend here is skating on by. I love this meme. I wish I would have seen him in New Life. If you're new here, I don't know how you got here. I don't know if somebody recommended this to you, sent you this link, whatever, but I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. I am Latoya Danique. I am the CEO of Scar Alchemy, a premier medical tattoo salon. I am 4 times internationally trained in skin camouflage. I am an still oncology nurse practitioner, but I don't practice essentially anymore. I have a decade of experience. I graduated from Emory University with the MSN and the BSN with honors, cum laude. I also went to the University of Georgia. Go Dogs. We're not gonna talk about that loss that they had. I'm so embarrassed and disappointed. But that's where my first degree is from. And I am dermatologist recommended here in my city. I have 5-star reviews on Google. I'm a mom, a retired socialite. I was that girl back in the day in these streets. I'm still that girl. I'm just not in these streets like I was. I'm all about wellness in the holistic and total sense of that word. And I consider myself a healer. And just a little bit more, I'm just gonna flex because if you don't root for yourself, I mean, who else is gonna do it for you? I have over 9 million views on Instagram. I've helped 300 plus women, a little sprinkled in some men there to get their confidence back. I've taught students online and in person from multiple cities across the US. And I have one of the most ethnically diverse portfolios of any other camouflage tattoo artist in North America. My clients have come from all over the world, and I'm very, very proud of that. Just in 2020, a little background, I left.
You were a hoe.
Back in the day.
How long haven't you been a hoe for?
For a little minute.
For what?
For a little minute. That's so funny. That's when people find out that I used to work with cancer patients. I treated cancer patients. So I decided to walk away from a very secure career in traditional medicine to embark on this wild journey of becoming a tattoo artist every day, especially like this time of the year. Two things I always reflect in medicine, especially in oncology, this time of the year is what I coined like the dying season. People start dying around October to January. So this will always be a very heavy season. And when you're in that, when you're in just in that on that path, you know it, you expect it, you understand it. And now that I'm like 3 years from removed from that, it is so different because the holidays have such a different meaning for me now. I think I really used to like loathe the holidays and I didn't even realize it except now watching my son. He is like Santa crazy. Y'all, he is doing all the things. I be making up all kind of fucking stories. And I said I was never gonna be one of those people. I was just gonna tell him the truth. But he is like so caught up in the magic of Christmas that I have to go with it. So like he be asking me how Santa know our phone number. We have a fireplace, but it's an electric fireplace. And he's asking me how is Santa gonna get down this fireplace, and I am making up all kinds of stuff. I'm just going with the magic. I'm like, oh, Santa's magical. So it's just hilarious and exciting. And the holidays just have a bigger and different meaning for me now. So I'm very appreciative of that path. But more importantly, as an entrepreneur, entrepreneurship affords me freedom, flexibility, autonomy, accomplishment, financial success, personal reward, and multiple streams of income. And while this year has been like one of the fastest years of my life, it has been like really a transformational year for me because so many things have happened simultaneously and are still taking place. And it's just been like a whole whirlwind, and it kind of really started with this year and me being awarded this grant. So in January of 2023, I was awarded a 10K grant from Invest Atlanta. Invest Atlanta is a revitalization and redevelopment agency here in Atlanta. It assists under the Georgia Department Authorities law. So if we're, everybody kind of said where they're from, Miami, Maryland, Tampa, Houston, I would tell you to one, start here and look for a similar program in your city or state because Invest Atlanta is fairly new. It like is maybe less than 5 years old, and it's just it came about because they were revitalizing like the city, and so they basically created a whole part of city development to assist business owners, like basically to promote them to start a business in the city of Atlanta. And so there are all these programs under Invest Atlanta, and this grant was a part of this program. So I would start first there, like put in your state development authorities law and see if there's some kind of program there that you don't know about. My mom saw this come across the email. And then I had a friend that got a grant from them that was totally separate from mine. And she just randomly said it in conversation one day, like, oh, I got a grant last year. And I'm like, what did you get a grant last year from? But she has a lash business. And she was like, oh, Invest Atlanta. She said it like so like I was supposed to know what this was. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about, girl. And so I started Googling, found the website, and it was just like overwhelming because it was all of these things that Invest Atlanta does. Invest Atlanta does like a ton of things because it's a huge, not huge, but it looks huge on the internet. If you understand what I'm saying, it's like a lot of stuff over there. And then probably like 2 weeks later, my mom sent me an email and said she saw something somewhere and I needed to like sign up for this thing because she heard that they give grants. And I had literally went on the website to start like to just try to be, because it's basically they had a bunch of like they had like a business coach program where you could get like a free business coach outside of this grant. So it was like it had all of these different like amenities, and I just signed up for the business coaching slash mentorship program. And when I got into that, the business coach that I was assigned to also told me about this grant. So it was kind of like the everything just kind of started falling into place. I'm like, okay, grant, here I come. So the money from that grant allowed me to go from my 100 square foot salon suites where I was knocking shit over all the time. I basically just outgrew that space in 2 years to a 1,200 square foot 2-story loft studio. And my friend Dario has came to my studio, and I think it's really nice and really cute, but it is 12 times sizes from what I had before. So it's a huge, huge, huge step. And I probably would not have been able to do it without that grant, because when everything literally happened, I got awarded that grant in January and I found that space in March, and I moved in April. And because I had that grant, I was able to move because the things they were asking for as a part of the leasing agreement required me to have a certain amount of money in my bank account and da 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 da, and I had to show like all of this proof of da 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 da. So the grant made it happen. And it probably wouldn't even happen. I wouldn't have I don't know where I would have been, but it worked. It worked out. But my whole point to that was I applied for that grant in June of 2022, and I didn't get the actual funds until January 2023. So we'll come back to that later, but just keep that time frame in mind when I bring it back up. So key things we'll cover in this webinar. We'll talk about the things you need to win a grant, how you need to change your mindset, and then I'm gonna share just 24 more grants with you guys on my probably kind of how you guys found out about this. I did like a reel and I gave like 5 grants. They all kind of those grants. I think the last one is like maybe tomorrow, but I'm gonna share more grants starting from like maybe tomorrow to mid-January. So you'll have time. And if you don't know what those are, then include them in this presentation because they're gonna wrap up. One of them ends tonight, but I would just remind you to go back to my reel from a couple of days ago. And I named like 5 grants you need to apply for before the year's out. So y'all ready? Anybody have any questions? We'll do this. I'll let y'all come in and check in on some questions. That way you don't lose your questions. Anybody have a question from anything I presented already? Yes, no, maybe so.
Nope, sounds good.
Okay, cool.
They're over here.
Let's go. Let's keep going. So, did y'all know that statistically it takes entrepreneurs a year and a half to move from 0 to 2K a month to a 6-figure earner? Did anybody know that? Like that, I just want you to know that because sometimes I think we get discouraged if when we first start a business, if things aren't going well. But this is statistically a year and a half and you're doing like all of these things in a row. This is not if you're working part-time, this is not if you are doing this, PRN. This is like you are running a full-time business with everything you need. You're doing all the things you need to do. This is not like, oh, I just got this going, oh, I just got that going, which is how a lot of people start their businesses, especially if you're in a beauty business. It may be like you're transitioning to. This is a year and a half and you are solid ready. It takes that long to move from 0 to 2K to a 6-figure earner a month. So, and the number one reason why small businesses fail is lack of capital. It's a proven fact that businesses go through cycles of ups and downs, and the way to continue to grow is to have enough money to float you when your business hits a low. So all businesses go through that low period, and then they high, and then they're low again. It could be seasonal. It could be like market trends. It could be, economic inflation, like kind of where we are now. We're kind of in this like in between spot, and certain businesses are being more affected by where we are and others not so much. This piece is there are tons of people who businesses are growing, like the digital space is like taking off, and it's like other areas that are not. So people are spending money. I just always think about like people just change how they spend money. So if you keep that in mind, you won't ever feel like, oh shit. Like a prime example is during the pandemic, malls were closing and a lot of businesses failed, but there were a lot of businesses that blew up because they saw what was going on. Like the Bezos and the stock market people and the gurus of that, they made tons of money during the pandemic because people were still spending, but they were just more spending online. Everybody was buying everything online. Like even right now, I just read a report that in the plastic surgeon industry, they found that just this last year they did a poll from 2022 and it says that plastic surgeons are reporting that they are getting 3 times the amount of business that they were getting before the pandemic, even in this economy. So people are spending hella money on like self-care and like looking good, feeling good, because that's kind of where we are now. So just keep that in mind. But all businesses go through a cycle. If your business is going through one of those cycles currently, that is very normal. But the goal is for you to secure capital so that when you go through those cycles, that you can float until you kind of come up out of that cycle. And so this is why grants are so important. Like why you should invest in using other people's money. you have a low financial risk with a grant. You can reinvest it into your business without going into your own profits. It reduces debt, like unlike a loan, you don't owe anything. It improves creativity because one, you're not stressing about money. So if you got money in the bank and it's other people money, you'll start figuring out ways to make more money or ways to improve what you're currently doing. Like being stressed cuts off that whole creative mechanism. And when you're not stressed, that's why you kind of see rich people getting richer. That's because they're not stressed about money. And so if you know some of that pressure is taken off because it ain't your money that you're using, that makes you way more creative. So we're gonna try to get to that. And according to most grant writers, this is one thing I learned. If you see a little diamond, that's a gem that I didn't drop. It might be some more gems in here, but these are when I was putting this together, these are my own. I'm like, oh, baby, this is a gem. So if you see a gem, keep that in mind. So I found this out. According to most grant writers, you should be winning, not applying. You should be winning a grant each quarter. So you should be applying for grants all the time, but you should kind of be applying for grants. It should kind of be like a muscle. So you are winning a grant every single quarter. That was news to me when I heard that. I was like, wait. So essentially, your business should be winning a grant every quarter. So like 4 times a year, you should be getting an influx of money. Imagine what would y'all do if every quarter you got, let's keep it low. Let's keep it low. Like what if every quarter you got $10,000 for somebody else? So at the end of the year, $40,000 a year you got from somebody else. Would y'all be good? Like we gonna unmute yourself and let me tell you how that would make you feel. Shit, I know me, honey. Yes,
Yeah.
right. And so imagine if that was part of your if that was part of your like overall, what is it called? Profit and loss like thing. What if that was overall how you did? Like you didn't have to equate for that because you literally knew that every quarter you got a grant. Every quarter you would get a grant. Every quarter. So even when the things were low, you gonna get this grant and you're gonna be good because it's gonna get you through the season. It's gonna get you through this little, whatever. If things are tight, you got a grant coming, you're gonna be good. So, baby, that like literally woke up something in me when I heard that. I was like, oh, okay. It's kind of like it's essentially like a source of income, like a revenue stream. Like grants are one of your revenue streams. I never considered that as I always thought of it like a one-off, like just a win. I never heard it be presented like grants should be a part of your revenue stream for your business. Light bulb on. Mm-mm. Sorry, friends. Trying to So, applying for grants is an investment. Why? Because it requires your time, it requires research, and you have to plan for how you're going to allocate the resources. So, unlike what most people think, you don't just get the grant and you can do whatever you want with it. Before you win a grant, you have to tell those people what you're going to do with the grant. And depending on the amount of the grant, they're going to come back and ask you, did you do what you said you was going to do with the grant? And if you do not, then they're gonna want their money back. So when you're investing in a grant, there is an investment. There is it's a time exchange, a research and exchange, and you have to have an idea of what you want to do with the grant because that is also gonna help you win the grant, knowing what you want the grant for. So if you haven't put a lot of consideration into that, start thinking about that. So grant fundamentals, these are essentially what you need to win a grant. At a minimum, you'll need your articles of business. If you already have a business, you probably have that. That's like your Secretary of State info. And of course, that varies with every state. Every state doesn't require you to have articles of business. I think like in Texas, they might not even necessarily require that you have to have a Secretary of State to run a license. So this is just depending on where you are. But for a grant, you'll need that. They'll need to see that you're a legit business. A business bank account, of course, separate from your personal account. So if you don't have that set up, go ahead and get that set up because if you're applying for a grant, so basically, if you're applying for a grant and you don't have these things, you're not going to win because that's how they sift through the bullshit. A physical address, not a PO box, and this should not be your home address. This was a little interesting to me because when I started my business, I had my salon suite, but I did not list that as my business address. I listed my home address as my business address, and I would have like doing business under a separate address. And I went back and changed that so I could win grants, because this kind of came up when I was awarded my grant. They almost didn't give it to me because my home address and my business address were two different locations. Both are in the city of Atlanta, but they were like, well, the home address is in an area that doesn't have a need, but the business address is. And luckily, my business mentor spoke on my behalf. They came back and asked him before they issued the grant. He was like, yeah, no. He kind of just, we had talked about it just in our conversations that when I did it, the only reason why I didn't list my physical address of my business was because I didn't control the mail there. And I was always very funny about that. Like, we had like 10 managers when I was there. There was like a high turnaround on the manager rate. And I never could trust that like I would get the mail on time, because it just depended on who was there to pass the mail out. They would just, you didn't have a mailbox, they would like put it under your door. It was like real janky. And so I wanted all business stuff to come to my house. When I got into this grant class, I went back and changed that information on my Secretary of State. Now I have a physical address, a new location where I check the mail. And so I changed all of that. So if you don't have that updated, that is big. This was one of the things that she said comes up often, and is why a lot of people will, everything else will be good, and they don't have a physical address, or they have a PO box, or they're using even these virtual addresses. I know like there's a thing like you could like have a Google address or something like that. She said that would not fly for a grant either. If you have like a physical, there are places where like they may be like, let's say like a WeWork type thing where you have like a physical address in that building. I think that works, but these virtual addresses that are just like some random address that you pay for, blah 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 blah. This would be something that I would definitely like hire a grant writer to clarify, but in that class she said that does not fly, because they know, because they consider that fake. It needs to be an actual physical address. And then your accounting docs, that's like your profit and loss statements, any bookkeeping info. If you don't have P&L statements, that's okay, but you basically need to be able to provide like a history of stuff. Because when these grants that are over like over $1,000, they want you to send in all kind of paperwork. It's damn near like getting approved for a house. So my story, I don't know how much you guys know, but I started to share this on Instagram. Basically, that grant that I got awarded in January, the process, I found out about that grant like maybe April or May of 2022. I went in there, started filling it out. It was like one of those things like go in there, answer all the questions, save, move to the next screen. You get to the next screen, it's all of these questions. You got to upload all these documents. It was a lot, right? So I started filling it out, went through it. Like I'm one of those people, I'm like, let me go see what all it's asking me for. Okay, boom, I gotta go back and do that. Boom, I gotta go back and do that. I started doing that, and the stuff it was asking me for, I didn't readily have available. Like I had to show receipts of stuff and blah 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 blah. And I had just got an accountant. Did I even have her? This is 2023. I got my accountant at the ends of 2022. So when I got this grant, I did not have an accountant. I was just doing my bookkeeping myself, but I had pretty good bookkeeping, but like storing stuff and receipts and stuff, I would do like big stuff would be in a folder. Like, oh, if it was like over a certain amount, I would put it in a folder. And then everything else, I kind of just knew where the receipts was. I had like a receipt folder, like a physical receipt folder, right? So I had to go and scan all of these copies and upload them. But it was like all this stuff that I needed to do. So the thing that when I started applying for the grant, I was like, oh, bitch, you got to get on your P's and Q's, because this is not going to work. Right. So I learned that doing the grant, but that's also one of the things that kind of held me back from going through with the grant all the way through at first, because I didn't have everything that I needed. So it ended up, the grant was supposed to end like May 31st. I went out of town, was gonna work on a grant while I was on vacation. And then something else came up that I prioritized, because in my mind, I was like, this is a go. This grant is a maybe. I'm going to take my energy and focus on the thing that is a go, right? That's how I be doing. So I shifted and did everything for the thing that was a go. And then I didn't have enough time to finalize the grants, and so I did not get it in before it closed, and I felt so bad about that, like, that was so heavy on me because I was like, I just had a feeling like I was gonna win this grant. I was like, this came because I kept getting all these, like, signs toward this particular grant. My mama told me about it, my friends told me about it, I had found it. I was like, "I feel like I'm gonna win this grant." And then I let the shit close, and I felt so bad about it, and literally like a week after it closed, they sent an email out and said, "Hey, y'all asses must did apply." I don't know what they didn't say that, but but that's what I got from it. That's what I interpreted from it. I felt like enough people must not have applied because they extended it by another month. And I was like, oh my God, my prayers have been answered. So I went back, did everything, and uploaded it and sent it in. And so I waited for like 3 months. So this was like June, July, August. End of August, I still hadn't heard anything back. I'm like, hey, like what's going on with this grant? They started emailing me like, oh, we need this information. We need that information. I went back and forth with them sending more information for like another 2 months. And then nothing. Crickets. Because we in Atlanta. And then finally, like I emailed somebody like around November. They looked my stuff up and said, nope, you did not get awarded the grant. And I was so pissed. And I was like, I was emailing you guys for I'm doing all this. I'm Kermit the Frog, right? I said all of this. And then I went out of town for Thanksgiving. And when I came back, I got an email that said, hey, you've been awarded this grant. We're missing additional documents. We're missing these last two documents. We're gonna close your portfolio if we don't get this information in. And they gave me like 48 hours to do it. And I'm like, what? I was like, somebody told me I didn't get the grant. But I think what happened was I hadn't filled out the information. So that's what that person was trying to say, but that's not what they said. Got it in and got awarded. And what happened was they were reaching out to my business coach who was a part of that program and finalizing the address part. That was like the holdup. And so all that to say, I ended up getting a grant. And I remember when I was going through that grant process, I was like venting to him. This is me whining. I was like, they're asking me for so much stuff. And I feel like every time I'm blah, 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 blah. And you know what he said to me? He said, yeah, that's how they weed out who really needs the money and who does not. Like, just fill it out. And I was like, you know what? Checkmate. Like, you're absolutely right. Like, let me get it together. This is a $10,000 grant. I'm over here complaining because they want paperwork. I'm gonna send y'all whatever y'all want. So, all that to say, you got to change your mindset. We'll get to that. So you need all of those things. You also will usually typically need, this will benefit you. So these are things to save because every grant is for the most part is going to ask you this. Your mission statement, a vision statement, what are your business's objectives? Who is your target market? Purpose of the proposal, like why do you need this grant? What your product or service is, your brand story, like who are you? Tell us about and revenue projections. This whole slide is what I was asked to present when I got the grant writer. So I hired a grant writer and this was a part of their grant questionnaire. So if you're going to hire a grant writer and you don't have this answered, don't waste your time. Focus on this. If you're not planning on hiring a grant writer and you want to like apply for grants, you're still going to need all of these things. I took a class and I talk about this all the time. I took a class from the Cornell I think it was Cornell Business Program, may have been Cornell Women in Business, not quite sure, don't quote me, but they have a free program through Bank of America. So that's where you can start. You can Google the Bank of America program with Cornell, blah, 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 blah. It was free. In that program, I learned how to craft a mission statement, a vision statement, my company's objectives, how to find my target market, all of those things. So when I hired the grant writer, this was just, I filled this out in 6 to 7 minutes because I really just copied it and pasted it from some things I already had. So if you don't have that, when it comes to winning a grant, you probably gonna struggle because that's probably where you're gonna spend your time trying to make that part up, and you kind of just need to already have it. So that's where I would focus on if you're in that space right now. Like, oh, you know, I don't even have a mission statement for my company. I don't even have a vision for my company. I kind of know, but I don't really know. Really, really focus on making that real tight, real succinct, real good. And what the grant writer basically said was, imagine she gave us a scenario like you want to do event planning. If you say you want to like get a grant because you're an event planner, that's not really gonna win because that very much sounds like how you need the money. When you are trying to win a grant, you have to speak in the language of the money is needed for the people I'm serving. Does that make sense? Like me saying it like that, like not I need this money for my business so I can do this, da 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 da. It needs to be the money that I will win from the business is going to help these people who I serve. So she gave an example of if you're an event planner, you're just trying to like get a grant so you can get a bigger space, right? That's probably not going to work. But if you say you're an event planner and you need a grant because a larger space would allow you to have more community development programs, more job fairs, you're going to yada, yada, yada. That sounds like the person who gonna win the grant versus the person who just want to have an event space because they in an Instagram class and people said that's the wave of 2024. Does that make sense? Say yes, no, maybe so. Or you could just type it in the chat. Is that clear? Somebody said I work in a spa, but the spa isn't in my business name. Is that okay? Let me see. Oh, y'all in here talking. Okay, let me go to this. I got my own spot. I get my own spot. Okay. I work in spa, but the spa isn't in my business name. Is that okay? So my Mediana, it's Mediana, right? Come in and tell me what you mean by when you say I work in a spa, but the spa isn't in your business name.
Yeah, so I do browse in the beauty bar. And yeah, so the beauty bar is their own, they have their own business name, but they brought me in to do browse, but in my business name.
So you have your own business. You're just like
Yeah.
renting a room out of that spa.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. But just as long as where you have wherever your business is registered, like when you register your business, that just needs to be a physical space. So if you're requesting a grant for you, it's fine if you're in that space as long as it's basically all the things have to be consistent, like on paper. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah, that's
basically,
the
like
thing. I don't believe they have it on like paper. Um, so
like for you. So like let's say if you were applying for a grant and they asked you for your address, all the addresses need to be the same. You get what I'm saying?
oh,
Or
so but
not, if
it's my
not,
home address.
right. So a home address is not going to allow you to win a grant.
Okay.
Because if your home address is your business address, it looks like you have a home-based business. But do you have a home-based business?
No, I work in the beauty bar.
Exactly. So do you see what I mean? So like imagine I'm a grant writer and your business address is your home. I'm not going to give it to you because it looks like you're being shady.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
So if I give the beauty bar's address, but they look it up and it's the beauty bar's name, but and not my name, would that be like an issue?
Probably. That's why I'm teaching this class because you probably will never win a grant if that's the case.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay.
So you can have you can have your business name and the physical address of your business is the beauty bar. You know what I mean? Because you can have multiple businesses in one space. Like I was in a salon suite that I had that address and somebody else had that address. It was like number, like I was in number 101, but there were 20 businesses in that one physical address. That is okay. But I could not say my business is in this location, but it's registered to my home because then for the grants, it needs to all be consistent. Like everything, all the boxes need to be checked and they need to be consistent. And they don't usually grant businesses that are not home-based businesses grants when that's not because you get what I'm saying? Because you could have made all that shit up.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just trying to like, I'm tr- I'm just trying to figure out like, what I have to tell them, like on paper to include my business on paper, just in case these grants see that, just so they could see that I'm located there.
So if I were the case, I probably would tell, that's a decision you have to make, but I would go about changing the registration, because when you turn your articles in, the articles need to say what you filled out on the grant. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. Okay, I see. Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
if your articles say it's at, 1300 Bank Street, and then you say the physical address is 1472, Red Street, the grant people are like, well, where's the business?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what happened in my case. The only reason why it worked out for me is because my mentor worked with like that would have never happened, which was why it was being held up. And I didn't know that part.
Mm-hmm.
He called me back and was like, yeah, he was like, so your business is listed at that physical location. And he was like, I know it's at that physical location. And they verified that with me, and you can pull it up. My website was at that physical location. You know what I mean? If you pulled that, Google would pull it up. So it was like, it was very much like, oh, her business is there, but why does her articles of business say her business is this home address? You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was
Yeah.
the holdup. And for me, I was like, oh, it's really simple. Because I don't send no mail over there. And I literally started my business before I had a location, and I never went back and changed it because I never sent mail over there. So all of my business mail comes to my home, but my physical address for my business is there. And then I realized, yes. So I had never got a grant before that. And that was probably why. You get what I'm saying? This one was just local, and I literally had an inside connect that just worked out for me. But I probably would not have even gotten this grant if, like, had he not been there, if I didn't have a relationship with him, I probably would have never got that grant.
Okay.
And then
Okay. Thank
I had to provide that. I was like, oh no, like every time like when it got ready to issue the grant, it was very much like, okay. And I went and got the check because I did not want no drama. That's
Mhm.
very same reason, like, no, I'm gonna pick it up because I don't want y'all. But I was like, oh, and that made a lot of sense to me. So like now my business is registered with my physical address now. So that way that won't be an issue, because that's literally how they go through the screen. And imagine if they get 500 applicants, they are just checking stuff off. This
Mhm.
address is this address, you got two different addresses, boom, you getting kicked out. It makes it real easy to like weed through who is actually eligible for the grant.
Okay.
And I didn't know that before. I was like, oh, so that's why I'm sharing it. So if you don't have that part down, I would work on how you're gonna go about doing that, because you want to be able to like basically get through every round. If the first
Mhm.
round is when they get to the end and they ask you for that information and it's in two different places, it's not gonna happen for you.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Welcome. Anybody else have a question about any of that, any of this while we on this page? Going once, going twice. Okay. This was my broker, and this is me when I got my new space. I was so excited. So that's just what that picture is. That was fun, wild times. And then this is basically a rinse and repeat. So once you know all of these things, you basically tailor your answers to fit the purpose of the grant. So for example, if it's because the grants will sometimes tell you what the purpose of the grant is. It'll be like, this is a grant for da 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 da. So if it's a marketing grant, when they ask you what you're going to do with the money, you don't say you gonna use it for rent. You say you plan to film in your space. You know what I mean? You're gonna do promotional blah 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 in your space, especially if it's a grant with certain stipulations, like it's a certain type of grant. So you can tweak your answers for the grant. And it could be that you're going to do that in your space, but that was something else that I learned. I'm like, it didn't kind of resonate with me. Like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like if it's a grant for a particular effort, like oh, the purpose of the grant is for this effort, and you're applying for a grant, and your goals don't match the effort or the purpose of the grant, you're not going to win. So you can tweak what you say you need the money for, because that is essentially what you need the money for. But if you just answer it straight up, as is, that's not how you win the grant. So basically you simply store your info and apply for grants using your rock solid formula. And as you grow, your needs will change, and then you update your document as needed. Like your market might change, the cities you might change, how much you need might change, but you just update that and change that as you grow. But basically, once you know what they require and how to tailor the grant, then you'll know how to start answering the questions, because a lot of that happens too. Like the grant writer was basically like, imagine they get all of these grant applications and nobody's stuff sounds profound. They basically pick the people who have the definitely easily pick the people who have all of the boxes checked. That's first cut. And then secondly, they pick the people who seem like they know what the grant is about, and that their goals for what they want to do are going to match the needs of the grant. And then third, the people who have like a compelling story regarding the grants. And saying it like that made everything make so much sense. So like when you've seen these people on Instagram and they've won all of this grant money like multiple times over and over, it's because they mastered the grant process. So I'll put this in here because somebody messaged me, and I resonated with this because I was like this. It was basically like somebody literally DM'd me or called me on Monday and was like, yeah, so one of those grants that I applied for a grant, and it wasn't just simple like that. It was like all of this stuff you had to do. And I was like, yeah, that's how they work. Like, don't get it caught up that it's like literally like one page. There are some. I applied for a grant last weekend from like Kevin Hart was giving out. It was literally like maybe 6 questions. Like it was so quick. I was like, oh, I like emailed 5 people that night. It was like, go apply for this grant, because when they're simple, they're simple. But a lot of them, especially when they give out a lot of money, is not like that. So what I want you to understand is you have to have a mindset. We talked about why it is an investment, but you have to have a mindset about winning a grant. So for example, let's pretend like we're all parents of teenage daughters. We all have teenage daughters. If you do have a teenage daughter, this makes more sense. But let's pretend like we're all parents of teenage daughters, and we're going to start letting her date a young man. She got a boyfriend, she want to start dating, and you okay with her dating. You just have put it out that you're going to have to meet everybody she gonna date, just so you feel good as a parent about who you gonna let your daughter go out on a date with. So you're like, cool, you can start dating, but I need to meet everybody first. And if I don't feel good about him, it's not gonna happen. And she like, okay, so you got you got this boy right here, first boy. He comes over to the house, he say, he cool. He say, hey, how you doing? You know, Miss Latoya, Mr. Latoya, blah, 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 blah. And you just asking him a couple of questions like, okay, cool. So like, what you like about my daughter? He like, she pretty. I like her. She pretty and everything. Like, I just like her. And you like, okay, yeah. So like, but what is it you like about it? He like, she's just pretty. I just like that she pretty and stuff. And you like, okay. So now you're trying to figure out if this little boy, like, only thing you telling me about my daughter is that she pretty. And so you're like, okay, well, let me just switch it up. And you like, so what are your intentions on dating my daughter? And he like, look, man, you asking me too many questions. I ain't got, I don't know about all that. I don't, you asking me too many questions. I just like your daughter because she pretty and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to be like, oh, okay, bet. Cool. Well, I'm going to let you know. We're going to get back to you. It was nice having you over. Thank you for coming. Go ahead and go home. Right. The next young man comes over and you start asking him, you run the same thing. He nice, he cool, whatever. You run the same thing by him. What do you like about my daughter? He like, she pretty. And you like, here we go again. And he say, okay, but he's like, yeah, she just really, I like that she, she be doing her homework and stuff. Like, I think that's cool. And you're like, oh, so he be paying attention to her. And then you ask him what are his intentions. And he's like, I haven't really thought about that part. I just, I just like her. I just know I like her. I haven't really thought about, all of that. And you like, So like, so now you break this down to him. You like, yeah, but what I'm saying is like, if she's your girlfriend, like, what does that mean for you? And like, why you want to take her out. And he's like, that's a good question. I ain't really thought about it like that. I just know I like her. She nice. I like that she like be doing her homework and stuff. Like, but I'm gonna think about that. Like you giving me a lot of stuff to think about. Okay. You like, the third young man comes over to the house and he comes in, he nice, yada yada yada. This brother dressed well and stuff. And so you ask him, what you like about my daughter? He's like, well, of course she's pretty and she's smart, all of that. And he's like, but what I really like about her is one day I saw her get this girl, it was a girl at our school that is in a wheelchair, and the girl was like struggling to get on the elevator, and I just saw her. I don't even think she saw me. I saw her help that girl get on the elevator. He was like, I really like that, because I have a sister that has a handicap, and whenever I see people go out of their way to help people with disabilities, it just makes me really appreciate that, because I would want the same thing to do for somebody to do for my sister. You gonna already like this boy, right? You gonna be like, damn, like, yeah, like he sees that quality in my daughter. And then you like, okay, well, shoot, like he answered that too good. Let me run the whole, what are your intentions with her? And he's like, what, honestly, like, I like her and everything, but why I really want to like, start dating her, I want to get to know her, is because I think she can teach me some things. There's some things that I see in her that I want to get better at. And I just think that like I can show her some things, she can teach me some things. Like I'm really good at, what I mean? I'm really good at math, and I don't know, I ain't saying she not good at math, but I'm really good at math. But it's just a quality about her that I really like. And I'm not as outgoing, and she's very outgoing. And I think like if I'm strong in this and she's strong in that, we could be like a little power couple at school. You know what I mean? Like we could be like a unit. If that boy say that to you, you're gonna be like, knock it out the park. That is the mentality you have to have when you are applying for a grant. If you only want the money, you have no idea what you want to do with it, and then you don't have a reason about why they should pick you, then that you're not going to win. You have to kind of have that mindset. Like you have to tell the grant, the person, you have to tell the people who are putting the money up that you are a solid business, you have goals and objectives for your business, and you have a story as to why this would benefit you and what you plan to do with this money and how it's going to impact the community that you serve and the people who you serve. If you don't have those answers well put together, you probably won't win, unless it's a grant where they're not asking for all of that. But like I said, especially if it's a grant that is worthwhile, like if it's like a micro grant and they're giving out 10,000 grants and everybody's gonna get like $500 or $1,000, they might not ask you all of that, because they're basically just giving it out to whoever applies. But if it's a grant where they got $50,000 and they're gonna give out 5 grants, they're gonna be sifting through the grants, and the people that are gonna win are gonna be people like the young man C, because he had a story as to why he liked the daughter, what he thought about it, what he wanted to do with it, and why it would benefit him and how he could benefit them as well. Does that make sense to everybody? So you got to have that mindset. You can't just go into it like, oh, I'm filling this out, blah, 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 blah. And then another thing is, it's free money, y'all. So you can't be like lazy about it. Like grants are highly competitive. If you go in with the mindset like the nuances are too much, you won't win. I had this same mindset. So I'm definitely not saying this from I'm not saying this from like I'm better, I got it mastered, but the light bulb went off when somebody said it to me, like, well, if you don't need the money, then don't worry about filling it out, because they really gonna pick the people who need the money. And if you need the money, you're gonna fill all them screens out. It's not gonna be no problem for you to do it. You know what I mean? So if you feel like them, it's kind of like the young man in the first one I said, what are your intentions? And he was like, I don't really, you asking me too many questions. That's kind of the mentality that you're taking on if you feel like it's too many nuances. Like, you asking me too many questions. Then people gonna be like, cool, I'm gonna keep my money then. You know what I mean? So they're going to ask you for 5011 documents. Yes, they want to know that you are legit. Like, are you really who you say you are? Is your business really who you says it is? Like, does it really exist? Y'all know the PPP craze. People was lying their lives away to get that money. You know, it was a lot of legitimate businesses that went there. Let me not say that, but a lot of people was making up stuff, whoop de whoop de whoop. And for grants, it's literally like sometimes this money is from a group of investors who are allocating this money. Sometimes this money has been set aside in companies' budgets, and this is their charity work. They're not just going to just give this away lightly because they budget for this amount and they really want for the grants to be impactful. You know what I mean? Like for me, mine, I can totally say like how that grant has impacted my business. I was able to teach multiple students at once. Before I had my space, I had to rent out a space when I would needed to teach more than one person at a time, which cut into my profits. It was always time consuming because I had to spend time searching for a space, make sure that it was available. I had to like, it was all of this stuff. I had to haul my stuff across the city. And then I never wanted to teach because it was a whole task. Now I have a classroom in my studio, so I literally can just block off my schedule and teach a class, and there's no additional issues. So like that cut out a whole headache, and it made me be able to like, okay, I can teach on a much more like regular schedule now. So like this impacts because I'm not the only one that can benefit from the information I have, and I'm helping other entrepreneurs with their own businesses by being somebody who can create wealth and create business and create new artists and create new incomes for other people. So like literally when my grant audit comes up, it's going to be easy for me to say how that grant impacted my business and impacted the community.
Alrighty.
Hey, whoever that is, can you mute yourself? Thank you. They are going to want to know details about your finances. That's why you definitely should have a business bank account. And it's really just, it's not them being nosy, y'all. It's just that you have to prove your business is a solid investment and not a waste. Imagine if you get a grant for $50,000 and then you blow it all off. Now that looks like that company did not make a good investment. So the bigger the payout, the more of an investment. And remember, it's just free money. So if you keep that mindset in mind, you'll be like, okay, I can do this, because it can get overwhelming. Like sometimes you'll go into a grant and it'll be like 7 screens. The one I applied for was like 10. They was asking for all kind of stuff, baby. But I could also see like I know probably people didn't probably apply for it because when they closed the grant, they opened it back up like a week later and was like, okay, we're gonna give y'all another 30 minutes to do it. And I had sat in a webinar for that grant too because it was so like lengthy. They were literally going through. That's why I really felt like I was gonna win that grant, because I'm like, they want to help people out. They literally had a whole webinar on the grants, like apply for the grant, ask the questions y'all have a grant. We're gonna kind of answer the questions. And people was asking dumb stuff. But I was like, they are really trying to help people get this grant because they got a webinar for the grants. So that made me be like, okay, that's why I felt bad when I didn't fill it out the first time. But that's also why I went back and filled it out the second time. You just have to change your mindset. All right. So last time, let me say it again. It's free money. So do not give up. You gotta have your gangster grills attitude when it comes to the grant. Because this is how I felt when I won. I was like, we up, baby. City girls are up. I was so excited. And just saying all that, there are rules and stipulations to each grant. I put on my Instagram post, like your best friend tells you about 100K grant. How much are you gonna tell her? And it was some girl in the comments that was like, it depends on what the stipulations are for the grant. Okay, baby, it's hypothetical. Like that's a whole made up thing. But I'm like, you know what? Maybe people don't know that grants have stipulations. You don't just get the money and you can do whatever you want with it. You have to do whatever you said you was gonna do with the grants. Money. And if it changes, it still needs to be something within the confines of what happened with the grant. So grants come with rules and you have to follow them. And typically, if you don't follow them, you forfeit the grant. That's why keeping good records via an accountant or a CPA or bookkeeping yourself help us with this. So a lot lot of times like bigger grants, they'll have like mine has like a 3-year turnaround. So basically they give you this money and they give you 3 years to basically disseminate the money and do the things that you said you was going to do. And then after the 3 years, they come back and kind of say like, okay, show us proof of what you did with the grant money. And a lot of times that's not necessarily like them trying to fact check you. A lot of times they use that for data to say this, like we gave out this much money and with this and with that money this happened. So a lot of times they do it for like market research, they do it for data, especially if they're getting funding from other like agencies and other investors. They need you to tell them how you spent the money so they can say the money was beneficial to you, and so they can get the money for other people and continue to have the grant going forward. So I just want to put that in because I know that there are rules to the grant, but maybe other people don't know that. But I think we all do. But just to make it real clear, it's not you got $10,000 and now you going, you planning a trip. You just need to do what you say you're gonna do with the money, so you good. Does all of that make sense? Let's do a little check-in. Everybody good? Anybody have any questions so far about anything that I've talked about? Yes, no, maybe so. We good? I don't even see y'all. I don't even see the questions in the chat. So
I'm
if-
good over here.
okay, cool. All right, so here we go. Let's get to the grants. You can either screenshot this, you can wait. I'm gonna resend this out like probably Monday or Tuesday if you want to go through it. But if you just want to go ahead and write it down, however you want to do, I'm just gonna go through the list of grants. Okay. So number 1, Galaxy Grant due tomorrow, $2,500. Is for minority or women entrepreneurs. So it doesn't necessarily say you have to be minority, a woman-owned businesses, minority and women-owned. So that's that grant. Take a screenshot. We gonna move on. Research it. I didn't put the wwws in here because you could just plug that into the internet and it will give you the grants. My last caveat before we keep going, I would say this: if you, let's say this grant is tomorrow and you like, damn, I just found out about this grant last night. It's asking me all this stuff. I don't have time to fill this out. Start the grant anyway, right? Go on, start the grant, or get on there like email. So let's say sometimes the grant will just when you sign up for the grant, they'll have you like put in all this information in order to like create an account or something of that sort. Do that, even if you don't think you're gonna be able to finish it, because sometimes these grants open back up. Like the one that I had, it literally closed, and that was just by the grace of God that it opened back up again. But sometimes they open back up. Sometimes they'll do like phase 1, phase 2. Like it may be a grant that they do a phase in the spring and then they do a phase in the winter. You'll be on the email list, so when the grant opens back up again, you'll literally be one of the first people they know. And then even if it's an annual grant and they just do this once a year, if you get on their email list, when the grant opens back up, they will send you the grant. A lot of times too, if they just get a new grant, if you're on the email list, they'll just have some random grant that pops up, and because you're on the email list, you will get a grant. So that's a lot of times how people like make all of these, have these long grant lists. Like I probably have now, just because I've done this a lot. I probably have like a grant list of over somewhere around like 50 grants right now. And this is just in the last year that I've been compiling this list. So you guys are gonna have 24. Okay, so that's just another gem that I would say. The Sephora Beauty Grant is on December 18th. It's $100,000. That's a lot. That's a lot, baby. Just know, I already know that grant is going to be asked for a Black business owner within the business industry. So boom, shakalaka, make it work. I don't know if it's one particular grant. So you got to be the best out of the best, but that's a Big Daddy grant. The Verizon Small Business Grant. This is a grant that we could all win. Their main stipulation is you have to complete at least 2 of the following in any combination: courses, coaching, or community events. So people don't know, but Verizon has a whole small business sector where they just provide small business efforts and small business information. They have all these like free classes you can take. So if you don't know anything about that, Google Verizon Small Business information. Get into that whole little portal, and you can apply for the grant. This was last year, and I missed this because I just didn't do the events. They like have courses that are not even long. I didn't have time to be the coach, the community events. But imagine if you need to start networking. They have community events, and now you meeting like-minded people in the small business factor. So I'm gonna start attending a community events. That's gonna be like one of my goals for next year, to just really, really get into to start networking more. But I think basically if you do these two things, then they give you the grant. We not gonna know, but I'll let y'all know because I'm gonna apply for it. But this whole little area is a gym. I'm in this network, so I know about the Verizon small business thing, and I don't even remember how I found out about it. But sometimes what happens is once you get into one of these like networks, they start sending you other information. That's probably kind of how I got a lot of this stuff. Because sorry guys, how I got a lot of this stuff, because some like this ain't even a whole side hustle, but it then became a whole side caveat of my business. But I'm gonna super apply to this grant too, because I think and I'm saying all of that because they just require you to complete these two things. It's almost probably like a shoe in. So if you do that, you probably will win. About her culture micro grant. This is probably a little bitty baby grant, but this is open to women of Caribbean and African descent who are entrepreneurs, creatives, and nonprofit founders, anywhere. See, you have to demonstrate that your projects are positively impacting culture and community. So the fact that that's one of the stipulations, that just means when you answer it, you need to make sure that what you say you're doing is positively impacting culture and community. And in the beauty industry, you can say what you're doing is positively impacting culture and community because of blah, 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 blah. But that's just keep in mind. But I imagine that this is probably a short grant what I'm trying to say, grant process, because it's a small amount. The Awesome Foundation, $1,000 grants. This sounds like this is just a whole shoot your shot type thing. Have a crazy, brilliant idea that needs funding. This is just an idea. You don't even necessarily, I mean, and then they award 1,000 grants every month. So that's probably like once a month they award a $1,000 grant. So you probably can apply for, it says deadline December 30th. I wonder if they just award the money based like once a year, like you apply in the end of the year and then they give everybody like once a month an award. That's interesting. I don't know if I have a crazy brilliant idea, but I mean, I could think of one. Dear God, are we there yet? Another small grant. Are you making a change in your community? Do you try to find ways to make your community better? So remember when I talked about your mission and vision, start working on that so it has the language of that. So when they ask you for these grants, you could just easily plug and play. Are you looking for volunteers, help, or support to grow your cause? A lot of times, even with these kind of grants, they'll have like, when you go to the website, they'll have like free resources that they give out. Like, oh, you can get like with Invest in Atlanta, it was a free business coaching program. So I got a business coach out of there. He was more like my mentor because a lot of the things that I had already set up. It was like literally how to start a business, and it kind of walked you through. But like now, because we have a relationship, whenever he finds out about grants, he sends them to me. Because my thing was like, he was like, you're doing everything you supposed to be doing. I was like, my main issue is just capital. Like I always need more money because I'm a small business. So don't get it twisted. And he was like, bet. So whenever I get a grant, I'll send it to you. So I'm just, whenever a grant comes across his desk, he just forwards me the email. Restaurant Disaster Relief Fund. This is a grant of $10,000. I have a friend I need to do. You have to be located and registered in one of the 50 states, Puerto Rico or DC. And then see how they say for restaurants based in other parts of the country, you may be eligible for another grant. That's that whole, like if you are in their portal, they would give you otherwise locations. Operate a brick and mortar location. So if this is somebody that don't have a brick and mortar location, you can't get the grant. So those are the stipulations. Open for at least 6 months. have a revenues of less than 3 million per a year per location. So if you know anybody who is in a restaurant business, I need to send this to one of my friends. This is a grant that ends at the end of the month. Walmart Spark Good grant of $10,000, December 31st. Let's see. See, because this is $10,000, you see how this grant is worded, baby. They gonna be one of the things. A recognized government entity exclusively for public purposes. I don't even know what that means. Front door verified. Food pantry, soup kitchens, and clothing closets. Okay. So that's one you got to read upon. But because it has all these like super stipulations and see the amount, that's what I mean. Like usually when they're bigger, they don't play about the requirements. But that's okay. Don't let that overwhelm you. Just read through it and see if you can benefit from it and if it would be worthwhile for a grant you can apply for. And then you can forward the information to anybody else you know. This sounds like a grant for people who are doing like real community based projects, like feeding the homeless or some kind of like community charity education type thing. But I mean, if you have like an education sector of your business, like myself, or anybody else who teaches anything in their business, or you plan to start teaching, you want to start teaching, then if it's like an education thing, then you would tailor that grant to go that route, because now you don't need the grant for products, you need the grant for education to, for community stuff, because you want to have more of these type of services in your community. And if you educated people on it, blah, 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 blah. Hello Skip grants, open to all business owners and entrepreneurs. Baby, that go to one. Boundless Futures Foundation grant. This is female entrepreneurs only. You must address a social issue directly or through your business model and must not be more than 3 years old. So this is like a very startup grant type thing. So if your grant is older than, if your business is older than 3 years old, they're not giving you, that's a good amount of money though. Damn. And see what I mean? They said to be awarded grant funding, applicants must self-report a credit score and agree to a third-party background check. See what I mean about when they start asking for more, when the grant is for more money, the stipulations get a little bit more. That's that whole what you want this money for, why you want to date my daughter. If you like, oh, you asking too many questions, you wouldn't agree to a third-party background check. It's a lot of people that probably wouldn't agree to that. But for $25,000, you can search my background because I don't got nothing I need to hide. You get what I'm saying? But it's a lot of people who won't agree to that. And that weeds out the grant list. And so it gets real easy to pick a recipient. Zen business grant information is for $5,000. I don't even know what the hell this is. Zen Business Formation Services. You can apply once per month. You are not eligible if you have won a previous award. Interesting. I don't even know what Zen Business is. I'm finna Google that because a current customer, that could be anything. This is probably some little random something, but you must offer products or services that help your community. You see how they all want that? So when you have your business objective, your business mission, your business vision statement, make sure that the language reads how this benefits your community. They're never giving grants to people who just want the money to make more money. Like essentially that's a business model and we all want that, but your business needs to benefit the community in some kind of way. Creative Without Borders grant. These are all of the criteria. Remember, it says kindly ensure that all of the criteria are met before submitting the application. I included this in here so you can kind of see how this goes. Organization must be at least 2 years old to be eligible. So a lot of grants are kind of like that. They want you to be like, they want you to have a certain amount of skin in the game. That's because they imagine in the beginning, if you're just starting out, you like, one, you might not even be here 2 years from now. Like, are you really about this life? And two, Of course you ain't got no money in the beginning. Like you're starting out. So is your business even profitable? If you don't have enough history, it's hard to say that, right? Like it could have just been like, oh, boom, you went viral, so now you got all this influx, but then that kind of fell off. So a lot of times that's why it's a time amount to it. But if you just know that, you just know that. Like you could say this grant if your business is less than 2 years old and come back when you hit that 2 year mark, and they probably would still be giving away this grant. Organizations with a team size of 3 or more. So if you don't have more than 3 members on your team, you can't even get this grant. This one is big because this is what I also wanted to say. I forgot to add that. Let me add this. This is a gem. Please ensure that your organization has a website online and use a corporate email to apply. Oh, that I feel I need to make a reel about that. So I say this to say, people will say there are all these people who think you don't need websites for your business, right? And depending on what kind of business you have, that may very well be true. But these grants, they all want you to have a website. I forgot to add that. They all want you to have a website. If you don't have some kind of website, where like how can people find you? And they got to be outside of a social media platform. That's not going to work. They all want you to have a website because the websites, whether people want to say it or not, they help to legitimize your business. Every corporate entity, for the most part, has a website, right? Like it's basically like your address in the internet world, right? And a corporate email to apply. Not that means not Latoya123 at AOL.com. It needs to be something that is very understood, like it's a corporate email. Like my email is Latoya Escar Alchemy. So if you don't have a corporate email address, meaning it is not easily distinguishable that it is a corporate email address and it looks like a personal email address, work on getting that's basically like work on getting a business email. So I need to go back and add that to the grant stipulations because you need a website because that's going to legitimize your businesses. They all ask, do you have a website? A lot of times they'll ask, do you have a social media? Because they know like people don't have websites, and depending on the type of business you have, I think that matters. But when these people trying to award money, they picking people who have websites because you even managing a website says something else about your business. Like managing a website is a whole nother task, and it's basically saying like it's almost like finishing touches. Like you care enough to put your stuff out there in the internet and you're going to keep it up. And mind you, if you got old stuff on your website, make sure that when you applying for a grant, make sure that your website is very up to date. You don't want to have some random blog post from like 2 years ago and you don't have anything else, because then it looks like your website is dead and it's not active. But having a website will definitely legitimize. I got a whole partnership with the AC Hotel, which is a Hilton subsidiary that is basically the luxury line of the Hilton hotels, because I had a website. That's literally the hotel, the concierge department hired a third party business to facilitate these relationships with local members of the community to have for their clients, they were to start off their concierge program and basically to level it up. And so the company found me and asked me that I want to do this partnership with them. And I was like so excited. We started going back and forth. And when it got to like the last day and I decided to move forward in the contract, I was like, how did y'all find me? And he told me the story. He was like, well, people are requesting this services, but we basically went through to vet the services, and your website, come on, somebody, your website is what made us go ahead and move forward. And we read your reviews, you had good websites, and then when we called, blah, 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 blah. So if I didn't have a website, these people not looking on social media for stuff like this. They're looking on the internet and verifying this stuff from the internet. So if you don't have a website or working website, start working on that too. You don't have to have nothing fancy. It could be a whole 1-2 pager, but get you a website and get your corporate email address. Rise Micro Grant. Grant amount of $1,000. Whoop to whoop to whoop. 51% owned by women of color. A lot of these are female grants. Sorry, Dario, but a lot of them are not. It's because I got this information from a women in business community. So a lot of times they kind of sift through the grants and pull all the female grants out. But you see, all of them are not female grants only. NASDAQ quarterly grant program. This is a for-profit business or consultant acting on behalf of a blah, 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 blah. Please note that this is basically your whole, like, how your business is registered. So they want, for $75,000, yeah, they want that grant. This is a Big Daddy legit grant. Vanguard Accelerator Grant. This is in February, so you can put this off and put this on your calendar to come back, but it's got to be in Minneapolis or St. Paul. Boom. Citizens NYC 2024 grants. Okay, Mariana, this for you. This is for NYC. This is your grant, honey.
I don't live there no more.
Ah, damn. I thought we had one for you. I was like, girl, this is a grant for you. So it sounds like this is but do y'all see this, how this wording is? Small businesses preserve and sustain local culture, serving as anchors and meeting places where community members make connections, share values, strengthen culture, and support local leaders. As a small business leader, when you get involved in your local community, you both create enormous goodwill and set up your business for greater success. So you got to start talking the talk of the grants when you start applying for grants. Does that make sense? Because that's what they're looking for. Trust Foundation grant. It's basically like when you write when you know how you do your college, whatever letters, and they ask you to answer that question. Baby, don't just be, you got to answer the question. You can be talking about, you got a whole well-lived life, but answer the question that the people asked you when you write your letter off, your essay, your college essay. 7,500. Support needs that are sustainable and don't commit funds to recurring expenditures. So that basically says, for a new program, like they telling you, examples include funding for a new program line. So like this grant is giving a hint. So that's what I mean about write the grant to tailor for what they need. They're basically saying, don't be asking us for, so in this grant, you cannot say that you're trying to pay your rent with this money, because they said not recurring expenditures, which a rent is. They're like, we want to help you do something new in your business, not something that's continuous that you're going to always need, blah, 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 blah. The Kitty Fund, $1,000. The founder identifies as a mother. That's interesting. Must have between 2 to 50 employees. Sometimes if you're the only person in a business, that won't work. But if you have contractors, and if you have contracted anybody for something, that usually counts. So if you are the only person in business, if you've contracted a graphic designer, that's considered, could be considered an employee. And if you're not sure about that, that's what you could add into your grant. So if they were to ask, because at the end of the day, when they ask you about this stuff, they're going to be asking you the specifics of it. You can say that, like, yeah, I don't have any full-time employees, but I use various contractors. You say how you contract people out throughout the year, and that will usually like cover for employees, air quotes. This grant is $7,500, May 1st. Emerging silver jewelry artist. Emerging is the thing. So I know there's something in the tattoo industry called, like, what do they call it? Permanent tattoo jewelry or something like that. This could possibly qualify. I love that. Emerging silver jewelry. I don't wear a lot of silver jewelry, but I love that somebody is like looking out for the silver jewelry artist. The Freed Fellowship Grant, honey, $500 deadline monthly. Every month we give one $500 grant to business owners in the U.S. No strings attached, no equity required. Everybody need to apply for this grant. Everybody need to apply for this grant. It says no strings attached, no equity required. So this is just easy. Plus it's only $500, so it's like, it's probably, they want you to answer these little whole things. quick. Why is the market in your favor? What's your compelling core narrative? Have you found or created a community? Have you found your special sauce? How do you make money? Real basic. And if you don't have the answer to that, use this to guide writing your grant stuff. I would just copy and paste this and put it somewhere and answer the questions, because those questions are probably going to come up in a different context in another grant you apply for. Sky's the limit grant. And we're going to wrap this up, y'all, because I just looked at the clock. Sky's the limit grant. Deadline monthly, same thing. Super, probably very basic. They have a monthly grant. Boom, boom, boom. The Amber Grant, I'm in this network, so I get all of the stuff that the Amber Grant emails. If you're not in the Amber Grant network, go to womensnet.com or womensnet.org or something, or put in the Amber Grant. They literally give out a monthly grants, and it's different for every single month. So like, it may be like 1 month is like education, 1 month is like, restaurant or food and da 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 da. I've never won a grant with them, and you have to, for the Amber Grant, I think you have to like pay. So like, you have to, it's awarded monthly, but every month is dedicated to something else, like a different area, and then it's like a $15 like entry fee or something like that. So I ain't mad at them. They done figured out a way that kind of probably helps them like fuel the grant in some kind of way, keep it going. But Women's Net is helpful. And even Dario, I would say everything I'm mentioning, a lot of times these are like under a network. So like the Amber Grant is under the Women's Net, but the Women's Net, even though it's the Women's Net, they come across grants for, like, sometimes they'll send out new grants and it'll be like, entrepreneurs, and it'll have like no gender associated with it, but they just disseminate the information out. So it may be in your benefit to just like get on the website things, because sometimes they're connected to other entities to help small business owners. I Fund Women Grant, not the cash amount varies. Honey, do that one at your own risk. But they got good corporate parts. Visa, Adidas, American Express. I guess they just give out the money when they get it. Women Who Launch grants, $10,000, blah, 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 blah. They want you to answer all of these things. MasterCard Fearless Drivers grants. 51% must be Black women owned. See, with this, they want you to talk about digital tools to help you grow your business online. So if you're not, they're only awarding this grant to people who are stepping into the digital realms. Michael and Susan Dale Foundation. Funding will be put towards project support or efforts to scale. This is what I meant. So I know I keep pointing this out, but you see how I'm saying like every grant has a different kind of purpose for the grant. So that's the thing to keep in mind when you start filling out the grants. Like, aim your language, aim your goals to meet the language of the grant. That's how people who win, that's what people who win grants do. That's what the woman who told us in a grant class. And when she said that, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like, okay, they're going to support people who have efforts to scale. So scale could be like me, I scaled, I went from a small space to a bigger space. That's a business scale. So it don't necessarily have to be like, oh, I'm going to hire like 10 employees. It could literally be like, oh, if you're adding on a revenue stream, you just have to make sure that you word it in that way. Start a peanut grant for founders who are unrepresented in the venture capital market. That's everybody who is Black or brown. The venture capital market is basically majority white male. I think it's less than 3% of people are people of color in the venture capital space. So that should be everybody. Genister Capital and Mentorship Supports. Oh, this is a big time grant. I don't even know what the hell the grant is asking for, but it's a whole lot of money. Evaluate the American Dream. This is open to everybody. It's $1,000, so it's probably an easy grant to win. And then boom, this is just my offer. So we have reached the end, friends. I have a mentorship opportunity that I'm offering. Let me be your winter mentor. It comes with an Instagram page audit, 2 private coaching sessions, an easy money holiday sales training, an email launch funnel template, and then a digital dollars planner. If you're looking for a mentor for the winter to end the year well, to start the new year off, I am offering a special for $600 now if you sign up by Sunday, and this ends on Christmas Day. So if you know anybody who is looking for a mentor, please tell them to reach out to me. This is available on my website, and these are the deliverables. If you are looking for a mentor, this is your first time getting a mentor, this will be a great opportunity because mentors are expensive. But if you don't have one and that's like something you want to get into, I would highly suggest, even if you don't want to work with me, getting a mentor. I got a business mentor when I first started my business, my first 3 months in, and it was helpful. And I have a business mentor every year. So I always have a mentor. I will be looking for somebody, and I've never had one consistently. So I kind of get them, fill them out, and work with them for like either 3 to 6 months, and then kind of move on because your goals change. And sometimes, some business, like my first mentor, she got a 3-month limit. She only works with people for 3 months, and I was like, "What? That sounded crazy to me." She worked with you for 3 months, and then you could do like a month to month thing, but when you do a month to month, it's just kind of like a little one-off check-in type something. And I totally understand after having several mentors over the past 3 years, I can understand that why that's in your best interest to do it like that. But there are programs that like you get a long-term mentor and programs for longer than that. But this is just something for you guys to think about, to share with your people who if somebody's asking you about that. This is an opportunity that I have going on. I love to work with you all. And anybody have any questions? Y'all want to, let's open up the chat for questions. You can unmute yourself or put your questions in the chat. Let me try to open this back up.
I don't have any questions. I feel like you answered a lot.
Oh, good. Was this helpful to anybody, everybody? No? Yes, no? Was it helpful?
Yes, I'm definitely gonna go on Google starting tonight.
So everybody say yes.
Yes, it was very helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm glad it could be helpful. So if y'all are good, y'all don't have no questions, we can wrap this up. Going once, going twice, y'all good? Y'all screenshotted the grants you think you want to apply for, or y'all got one in mind, or before everything wraps up? I didn't realize that like a lot of times like this is the time of the year that like that's why December was so heavy with grants. It's not like that all the time. That class that I mentioned from the Cornell business class, I also get grants from that class. So I did that program like 2 years ago, and I'm on a like a listserv, and like our teacher just sends out grants like quarterly. She'll get a grant list, and it'll just be like grants from like all over the world. But like she sends that like every quarter because she doesn't get a lot, because there are just not a lot of grants floating around. And then I've been talking about this on my page. If you guys have been, I don't know if some of y'all follow me or not. The Fearless Fund is a grant that's currently being sued by this white man and his friend. He's suing basically the Fearless Fund. And what the Fearless Fund is, they are a venture capital company that awards like millions of dollars to women of color businesses. So like all Black and brown business. And he is suing the company and saying they are discriminating because the grant is not available for everybody. The issue with that is if he wins, and he's made a like, they had to stop giving out money, because I was a part of that program too. Basically, like you join a Fearless Fund, when the Fearless Fund have information, they pass it out. Basically, it's gone all the way to the Supreme Court. But the caveat is, if he wins, and he's won some. He's based. I don't know what the hell he got going on, but if he wins this, it's going to set a precedent for grants. So you saw how all those grants, like a lot of them were like women in business, or a lot of times these were all just like kind of specific to women, but sometimes they'll be like specific to like religious communities, like Jewish or Muslim, or a lot of times like sometimes they'll be like for small Asian communities, like or like anybody from, we saw that one that says like you got to be of like African or Caribbean descent. Basically, if he wins this, all that shit is going to get wiped out. And not only is that going to affect grants, that's going to affect like different businesses, it's going to affect scholarships, it's going to affect like educational programs that are specific to a certain race, gender, all of the things. And that don't sound like it might affect a lot of people, but that is going to be huge, which is crazy because the whole point of grants, the whole purpose of grants is because the playing field is not equal, right? Like we already know who benefits from the law of the land as it serves. The whole point of the grants and the whole point of people giving money is because the venture capital space only has only has a 3% representation that is not white. So grants and all other programs like this help small businesses, people of color, women, people from small marginalized communities at least try to get a leg up. And this is literally gonna change the small business space as we know it if you win. So if you don't know anything about that, go join the Fearless Fund. Just sign their whatever blah 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 I'm trying to say. But just keep your eyes and ears out because this was probably over like $1 million in grant information from this webinar. And I mean, if that could benefit all of us collectively, and then all of that money be wiped out because um some white man don't think that everybody else needs to get help funding their business. What the fuck? So yeah.
That's so
Hey, that's what
that's so unfair.
it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I'm like, I can't believe it's even gotten this far, but yeah, that's what happens when a president gets elected and he puts certain judges in the Supreme Court. And yeah, so we're seeing this go down. And it's those little small things that you don't think like why are you bothered that somebody is giving somebody else like $10,000? Like the people who those
That's
people,
what I was just thinking, like, just move on, find another one.
yeah,
I'm
like
pretty sure there's others out there.
child. So yeah. So that's that. Okay. Well, thank you guys all for coming. We'll send a replay out next week once I edit this. I'm gonna cut the beginning off. And then you'll just have it for your reference and your records, and then you could just chop this up and go through it. I would definitely say go join Verizon because that grant is for everybody and they have a lot of opportunities in there. You guys, you welcome. Join Women's Net because they just, and even Dario, like I said, I know it says Women's Net, but I'm almost positive. Like I found out about the Verizon small business from the Women's Net community. So sometimes those communities, like even though it seems like it's gendered, initially they'll have all these little connector things. Like, are you a part of this? Are you a part of that? Like on the website when you sign up. So you could just, I would just kind of go through there and find your research because a lot of times, especially like big businesses, like Bank of America has this partnership with Cornell where they have a free educational program that they sponsor that whole sector, and it's a free program. You get a business certificate from Cornell, like and that's a free program that is part of their community. So and people be trying to check their boxes off, and you can benefit from it if you know where the information is. And it's not necessarily just like random information. That Cornell business class helped me out tremendously with my business. I recommend it all the time. And there is a wait list because it's through Cornell. So it's a wait list. It's not like you can just go sign up and get on it. I think I got on that and I got approved for the class like a year later. And then companies pay for for their employees to go through the class. So it's like 50% is they are like in there on a scholarship from their company, and then the other 50% is in there from scholarships from Bank of America. So if you're starting out, I would highly recommend that course. Okay, so happy holidays, everybody. Happy end of the year. We're still here. We're surviving. We are getting into a new year, and I wish all of y'all the best. And if you have any questions, if you were shy, you can email me, you can DM me, you can hit me up and let me know. Okay. And definitely, if you're looking into the mentorship program, I love to have you in and get to meet you and help transform your business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Good
night,
night.
everybody.
Bye.